Good morning, class. My name is George Murray, and for our group presentation, our criminal is Patty Hearst.
I'm Javen Estrada.
I'm Linda Vitalico.
And my name is Emily Alvis. Today we will be discussing our findings and research on Patty Hearst's life.
I will be discussing her background and her upbringing prior to her crimes committed.
I will be discussing her crimes committed, the sentencing, and the reality of privilege.
I will be discussing the containment theory.
And I'll be discussing how the containment theory compares to her life. Boom.
The criminal we have researched is Patty Hearst. Hearst was an author and actress. She grew up in the privileged part of Northern California. She grew up going to Catholic schools along with attending the University of California at Berkeley. The Hearsts are best known for her grandfather, William Randolph Hearst, creating the largest newspaper, newsreel, and movie business in the world. Hearst was only 19 when she was abducted from her apartment while still attending the University of California at Berkeley. The SLA requested that her father give a lot of money's worth in food to the needy in Los Angeles. He ended up giving $2 million worth in food, but the SLA requested that he give $6 million more. The Hearst Foundation was willing to donate more as long as Patty was released unharmed. But that all changed when Hearst was found on camera robbing a bank with a firearm. After she was found, she was convicted of armed robbery and served 2 years in prison.
Patty Hearst was born in 1954. In 1974, she was kidnapped and held for ransom by the Symbionese Liberation Army. Kidnapping is a Class 4 felony offense in the case of Patty Hearst. This comes with a minimum sentence of 20 years in prison and a maximum sentence of life in prison. In the time from February 4th, when she was kidnapped, till April, it is unknown what happened to Patty Hearst and the implications on her culpability and mental status. But in April of 1974, she was caught on surveillance cameras participating in an armed robbery of a bank with the Symbionese Liberation Army. It is unknown if this act was committed under duress. Regardless, armed robbery is a Class 1, or also called a Class A felony. This comes with a minimum of 6 years in prison and a maximum of life in prison. However, Patty Hearst only was sentenced to 2 years in prison. This was partially due to her family's wealth, the conditions of her crime, as well as her culpability in question.
So, as we said before, our criminal is Patty Hearst. Our theory is the containment theory. So, the containment theory is basically a form of control theory. And it's where other factors control the way a person acts, which can lead them into acting in criminal activities. Some of the factors to containment theory can include social mechanisms, which an example for that could be the pressures that get put onto you by your peers and others in your society or your community to do something or be a certain way. This can also be caused by a person's ties to family, school, relationships, commitments, and especially one's values and norms can cause them to break the law or act in criminal activities. Law and control. So basically when someone feels trapped or controlled, it may cause them to act a way that's not typical to their personality. So if somebody tends to be a good student and they feel like they're trapped and they're not getting anywhere, they're failing, it may act them to act out and start skipping class. Self-interest can be shown in situations where someone's own morals and values may cause them to differ in situations that can lead them to criminal acts. Early socialization can be described as someone's environment at a young age that influences them to act in certain ways, whether that be acting in criminal activities or for example, I was raised doing sports, so I was more likely to keep doing sports throughout the rest of my life rather than somebody who wasn't. Weak or broken bonds. This one can be shown in ways that, like, if an important, like, figure in someone's life is, like, out of the picture or passed away, after, like, creating a really strong bond with that person, them leaving can lead them into not doing what's normal in their life. Like, it can lead them into going into criminal activities or drugs or stuff like that. So the containment theory was proposed by someone named Walter Reckless, and it was proposed in the 1940s and 1960s, which is described as a theory where a series of external social factors and internal qualities have an effective way where it makes an individual have criminal actions or involvement. When I was like reading about it, I did more research on it. He talked about pushes and pulls and inner and outer containments, and from there we started looking at the reckless containment theory, which would be split up into 4 separate parts. And in class, with our PowerPoint, we had a graph that really helped me learn about it. And this is my best drawing of the graph, but as you can see, it's 4 separate parts, from most outer to most inner. The most inner part would be organic psychological push factors, which can include restless, discontent, hostility, rebellion, frequency, inferiority. So that's the most inner part. Second to the most inner part would be internal containment, which includes retention of norms, internalization of rules, goal orientation, self-perception, and frustration tolerance. Second to most outer would be external containment, which includes like your family, schools, role models, organizations, church, ego bolstering, supportive relationships, and group reinforcements. And then the most outer layer would be social pressures and pulls. That one can include poverty, unemployment, economic insecurity, lack of opportunities, bad companions, group conflicts, minority group status, delinquent substructure, mass media, and inequalities. And that's the rundown of our
Patty Hearst is a great example of the containment theory because of how her outside actions led to her robbing a bank, even if it wasn't the type of person she normally was, or how she was taught to act when she was growing up by a high-class family. Patty came from a wealthy high-class family, which made her a huge target for the Symbionese Liberation Army. Their goal was to bring death upon fascists who prey on people. By kidnapping Patty, they had hopes to get the country's attention, and by doing that, they did. At age 19, Patty was kidnapped by the Symbionese Liberation Army. She was found and arrested 19 months after being abducted. During this time, the way she was behaving would be described as affected by outer containment due to her learning crime. Due to her learning crime and being threatened by death or even punishment if she refused. This type of ultimatum would make it hard for a normal human being not to follow the orders they were given, no matter what situation they were in. During this time, she may have started to slowly get Stockholm syndrome. This is a coping mechanism the body will do when you're in an abusive situation and can change your perspective on how you view the person and their actions. It can change your thoughts on the person and make them positive over time, even if they are abusive and hurting you. While she was abducted, Patty claimed the Symbionese Liberation Army tried to brainwash her and force her to do actions. Some of the actions included locking her in the closet and physically and mentally abusing her. Well, they later made her change her name to Tanya and made her renounce her family to officially become a member of the SLA. By changing her name, she experienced inner containment. They brainwashed her mentally and made her ask questions about her self-image and think about who she really was. This self-questioning can cause any person to go insane and affect their behavior, make them act unordinary out of the blue and like a new person. Over time, the Stockholm syndrome would take control, and she'd be recorded on tape stating she was joining the Siamese Liberation Army. Soon after this tape was released, she was caught on camera robbing a bank while she had an assault rifle in her hand. With the gun in her hand, she was shouting orders to people that were walking by and witnessing the robbery. After she was arrested and sentenced to prison, the average sentence for this crime would be 6 to 30 years, but due to her high social status, she was only sentenced to 7. Out of the 7, she only had to serve 2. President Jimmy Carter commuted her sentence and dropped it from 7 to 2 with a bill. Shortly after, Bill Clinton granted her presidential pardon. The average human being wouldn't get this lucky and wouldn't be let off this easy. They wouldn't have a president release them and would be stuck in prison for their full sentence and have to serve a lot more time.